Отойди!
A Ukrainian elite assault unit storms a Russian-held village in the area around Liman. At first glance, the footage looks like the kind of GoPro helmet cam combat footage we've already seen countless times from Ukraine. Small fire team to squad-sized elements that are conducting clearing operations in urban and semi-urban terrain. Their task is to hunt down Russian infiltration groups occupying houses and basements. However, this footage is different, because it shows a relatively new assault unit concept that is one of the key reasons behind Ukraine's recent battlefield successes in the north and south. What you are seeing here is a so-called Ukrainian drone assault unit in action conducting search and strike missions. These units represent an organizational and doctrinal shift within Ukrainian combined arms warfare that is distinct from the usual battalion and brigade-level unmanned systems formations. This means they employ a different organizational structure and doctrine for drone use at the tactical level. With this, the Ukrainians are finally closing the gap between traditional infantry combat and modern drone strike capabilities by compressing the sensor-to-shooter cycle and embedding small ground teams directly with strike drone operators. The idea is to give ground teams sort of organic access to the advantages of drone reconnaissance and precision strikes, thereby increasing their combat effectiveness against Russian infiltration groups as well as enemy drone operators. In essence, the concept combines the suppressive, disruptive, and destructive effects of modern strike drones, which are then immediately exploited by infantry on the ground. Under these conditions, it is no longer the infantry that enters the most dangerous areas first and makes contact with the enemy. Instead, unmanned systems assume that role. As you will see shortly, these can include not only drones but also UGVs. Ground troops then move in to eliminate any remaining enemy presence, physically secure the area, and conduct battle damage assessments. Over the past 6 months, this approach has yielded considerable results and inflicted substantial losses on Russian forces, as can be seen in the footage that I can only show uncensored on Telegram. Of course, this tactic cannot fully replace the infantrymen yet. The capture of prisoners of war, for example, although already partially possible with unmanned systems, remains a task that still requires infantry. The same applies to immediate battlefield interrogations and the collection of human intelligence in general. A drone, or a UGV, for example, still cannot ask questions or humanly assess the answers given by a prisoner. It cannot determine whether a captive is lying, frightened, confused, or intentionally withholding information. The integration of UGVs into this concept can be seen in the recent case of Novoplatonivka, which was cleared of Russian forces following intensive training conducted by fighters of the Ukrainian 115th Separate Mechanized Brigade with the support of an armed unmanned ground vehicle. In this new paradigm, unmanned systems have become the central element of combat and are no longer merely assets supporting infantry. In fact, the shift has progressed so far that infantry has, in many cases, become just one layer within a broader drone strike framework. Traditionally, in the classical assault model, infantry has always been the primary carrier of combat. In other words, boots on the ground were the main element advancing against enemy positions. Under this new concept, however, infantry increasingly becomes the concluding element of the operation rather than the leading one. To better illustrate this, it is useful to compare the concept to traditional combined arms operations in urban terrain involving tanks. In urban combat, tanks are highly vulnerable to enemy infantry equipped with anti-tank weapons. As a result, infantry is typically sent into the area first to clear enemy forces and secure the route of advance. This enables the tanks to move in later and significantly reduces the amount of time they are exposed to direct enemy fire. The emerging drone-centric model effectively reverses parts of this relationship. Instead of infantry being the first element to make contact with the enemy, unmanned systems assume that role while also providing continuous tactical support to ground forces throughout the operation. If you have found my human researched and written commentary valuable so far, please consider leaving a like and a comment. Recently, I received what I believe to be a fraudulent copyright strike from the owner of the YouTube channel Senior. According to my view, He operates multiple content farm channels focused on low-value AI-generated war content and has been targeting my channel in an attempt to silence criticism. Since then, YouTube has significantly limited the reach of my videos. Every like, comment, and share helps support the channel and signals to the algorithm that this content is worth recommending until my attorney takes care of the legal side of things. In addition to the operations around Le Mans already shown, which were conducted by elements of the 53rd Mechanized Brigade together with the Signum drone unit, the drone assault unit concept received its baptism of fire during the second recapture of Kupiansk, which I reported on earlier this year, and proved its effectiveness there. This new way of fighting emerged from battlefield conditions in which Russian forces increasingly relied on small group infiltration tactics supported by drones and an extensive observation network. Rather than conducting frontal assaults, the Ukrainians adopted an approach centered on detecting, isolating, striking, and depriving the enemy of organizational coherence before rapidly introducing infantry for clearing operations and consolidation. In the medium term, drone assault units could form the basis for a style of warfare built around limited, precise, and technologically prepared operations rather than large-scale mechanized breakthroughs. Instead of overwhelming an enemy position through mass, the objective becomes to first degrade the enemy's ability to observe, communicate, and respond before physically taking the position. Whether this model can be expanded successfully will depend on Ukraine's ability to train sufficient operators, maintain the supply of unmanned systems, and continue adapting to Russian countermeasures. Drone assault units are therefore more than just another type of unit but a sign of a deeper change in the character of warfare in which technology is increasingly used not to replace soldiers, but to reduce their exposure to the enemy while also increasing their effectiveness and survivability on the battlefield.
Vai dali, vai dali! No. Acertei.
What combat in eastern Ukraine still looked like just over a decade ago can be seen in this recently resurfaced video from the 2nd NGU Donbass Battalion during an ambush near Vuhlehersk in 2015. Compared to present-day operations, a clear difference can be seen in unit cohesion, operational tempo, and the willingness of infantry and mechanized elements to expose themselves in open terrain. The initiation of the ambush by the Russian forces also differs significantly from what we would expect today. Instead of precise ATGM fire, artillery strikes, or drone attacks, the Ukrainians come under small arms fire and respond in kind. It should be noted, however, that at the time the war was officially regarded by Ukraine as a counter-terrorism operation, while Russia portrayed it as an uprising by pro-Russian forces within the country. It is remarkable how much drones have changed the nature of combat in Ukraine since then, not only because of their precision but also because of their sheer saturation and constant evolution, particularly in terms of range. As a result, operations like the ones seen in the previous archival clip have become nearly impossible to conduct today. This Ukrainian drone surveillance video shows a Russian air defense system moving through a field somewhere in Ukraine. The drone also observes several Russian soldiers in the vicinity of the vehicle, who appear to be attempting to board it, most likely in order to leave the area. Just after the men board the vehicle, it is struck by a precision strike and put out of action. This is something we have not seen documented in quite some time, as this drone video shows a Russian assault on Ukrainian positions in a tree line. It appears that the position had already been subjected to fire beforehand, as we can see shattered trees and churned up earth throughout the area. The Russian assault troops, marked with colored helmet covers for aerial identification, begin advancing toward the Ukrainian strongpoint. Of course, this does not play out like in a video game, where soldiers simply rush through an area and clear trenches at full speed. Instead, the assault follows a cautious and methodical approach. This is the slow and dangerous phase of the operation, clearing foxholes, bunkers, and shelters one by one. The Russians use small arms fire and grenades in an attempt to establish fire superiority over the Ukrainians, who remain concealed in their shelters. Throughout the assault, the Russians were able to maintain their freedom of movement through a high volume of fire directed at the Ukrainian positions. This allowed them to flank the pinned-down Ukrainians and close in on them. Here, we see a Russian soldier firing into the Ukrainian shelter before another grenade detonates nearby. However, the video ends without revealing the outcome of the assault. How do you think it ended? Let me know in the comments. This is a genuinely strange drone video. I have seen a lot of unusual footage involving Russian soldiers over the years, but I honestly cannot make sense of this one. I mean, what on earth just happened here? It looks deliberate, but could it also have been carelessness based on a misjudgment of the situation? I honestly don't know. Another sobering look at what these trench-clearing operations can sometimes look like, even without the intense action-packed force-on-force combat footage that became common throughout 2023 and 2024 on the battlefield in Ukraine, is provided by this recently released helmet cam video from the International Legion DIU channel.
Покатався трошки по грязі, не поняв, що далі не поїде.
Да, ну він одразу сказав. Так, слушаємо небо зараз. Ну, мужики, я вам скажу одне. Фарт з цим туманом у нас просто невероятний. Господь Бог нас береже поки що.
The video shows fighters from 1st Squadron Recruit Group on a mission to clear a reportedly compromised position in no man's land. After being inserted by Humvee and briefly consolidating in a small house to avoid early detection by enemy drones, the men began approaching the position along a tree line. As you may have already noticed, the men are wearing so-called half-ghillie or leaf suits. These are primarily used for camouflage. Among vegetation and foliage, they help conceal the soldiers both from ground observers and from aerial surveillance. In addition, this type of clothing can help reduce the visibility of a soldier's thermal signature, making detection by thermal drones more difficult and allowing the men to operate more effectively under such challenging conditions. As mentioned earlier, the objective was to clear the position known as Dragon and, if possible, capture enemy personnel. However, the mission was complicated by reports that a Ukrainian soldier from an adjacent unit with the call sign Max might be held captive inside the position. This meant the assault team could not simply overwhelm the position with firepower and aggression. Instead, they were forced to advance cautiously to avoid putting the captive at risk or triggering a friendly fire incident. As a result, the men carefully made their way through the tree line, hoping not to alert the Russian forces before reaching the position. In general, however, it is quite noteworthy just how quiet this video is. While occasional artillery fire can be heard in the background, there are no major combat sounds in the traditional sense. The reason for this is that the classical front line has, as mentioned earlier, largely given way to an ever-expanding kill zone stretching several kilometers in both directions. This zone is so heavily saturated with drones and sensors that traditional maneuver warfare has become extremely difficult. Forces are often detected early and engaged directly by unmanned systems. You may remember the discussion about drone assault units at the beginning of this video. The same dynamic applies here. Once Russian troops occupy a position, they generally try to shelter as deeply as possible in order to avoid detection and the drone strikes that often follow. As a result, much of the fighting takes place out of sight, with both sides attempting to conceal themselves from the constant presence of aerial surveillance. Once the men reach the position, they begin calling on the Russians inside to emerge and surrender.
Выходим! Хаким, выходим! Сдаемся в плен!
It appears that they know the name or call sign of one of the Russians inside the position.
Каким выходим? Снимаем оружие, снимаем броник и выходим.
Бігом! Нас много і у нас мало времени.
This information may have been obtained through intercepted radio communications or from the interrogation of previously captured prisoners. As the Russian fails to respond, the Ukrainians begin employing grenades. However, they have to proceed with caution in order not to endanger the possible friendly soldier who may be held captive inside the position.
Prepping grenade?
The Ukrainians continue trying to persuade the Russians to surrender, warning them that more pounding will follow if they refuse.
Запрыгай сюда.
Последний шанс выжить. Давайте бегом. Запускаем термобар, мужики, у вас был шанс. Давай гранату вам. Вышли бегом.
Sassy, trying to get it as far as possible. Okay. Just as far as possible in the entrance.
Мужики, 5 секунд. Запускаем термобар.
1, 2, 3.
Okay. Well, we have no signal to. Okay, prep grenades.
After even a thermobaric rocket failed to produce any response or reaction, the men decided to continue inspecting the position.
Okay, come closer, Sassy. Hold the covering.
Okay.
I don't see anything. Okay. Get as far as possible safely and then drop a grenade inside. Okay?
I see a light. Is that yours?
Yeah, it's mine.
Okay.
Lighting you the entrance. Okay.
Well, I need you to get on this side, okay?
Yeah. On the left. The thing goes to the right.
Okay.
And once you drop it in there, we'll run back.
Okay. I need some light. I need some light in a barrel. I need some light in a barrel.
Once again, this highlights the dangers of trench combat, even in an isolated setting. This type of position clearing operation is considered one of the most dangerous tasks on the battlefield.
Okay, keep advancing.
Okay.
If you can.
Push onto my left.
There is little room to maneuver or withdraw, and as I have mentioned many times before, every corner and bend can conceal a potential ambush in which the defender usually has the advantage of firing first.
Reloading.
Yep, cover it.
To mitigate this danger as much as possible, the men methodically employ pre-firing as they clear the position.
Try to get the sheet away. Playground.
Fighting underground is more than just a claustrophobic experience. Not only is enemy fire a constant threat, but so are booby traps that can detonate inside the confined tunnels and shelters, potentially burying the men alive.
There's it looks like they blockaded it or something.
Let me see. Watch. Let's get this shit out as well. Капер, все четко пока, чистим. Разгребаем вход.
Крию і небо цинкую.
Bruce. That's just to the side. Now, cover me. And give me light. Prep to run away.
Okay.
Prep to run away. Step back. Step back. I will need to run away as much as possible.
Yes.
Let's run.
The Americans had a name for soldiers who volunteered for this kind of work in Vietnam. They were called tunnel rats.
Have your back.
I need some light, brother.
Pre-fire a little bit. Wait until the dust comes off.
While this is only a much lighter version of that experience, it is no less impressive.
See something on the floor?
Malfunction.
Malfunction.
Ignoring you. I'm up. Let me fire to here. You keep firing to the left and keep advancing. Slow. One shot at a time. Keep advancing. Keep advancing further. Farther. Okay, I cannot clear anymore to the right. Just move yourself there, and I'll be holding this, and you prepare the entire room.
Oh.
I'm empty.
I see movement in there.
Movement?
Yep.
After the men continued working their way deeper into the underground position, their efforts finally began to pay off.
Clear the bed. Reload. I'll cover you. Стоп. Что? Выходите на! Быстро вы... Back. Медленно, я дам команду! Будете выходить! Стоять! Come back.
Under the constant pressure exerted by the assault team, the Russians eventually had a change of mind.
Все, они сдаются. Цинкуем теперь.
Быстрее, парни!
Выходим! Быстрее выходи! Выходи быстрее!
Не буду, иди! Кто там еще остался?
Куртку снял! Снял куртку! Быстро!
Иди без фокусов! Иди, будешь жить!
Выходи! Все нормально, выходи!
Иди, спокойно!
Спокойно, снимай куртку! Туда пошел! Слышишь? Снимай куртку!
Мужики, честно, вы не стреляйте.
Я не буду стрелять! Мы украинцы, мы не вы, сука! Мы вас не будем убивать!
Гранаты есть?
Нет, честно, нет.
Нету? Проходи!
Тихо!
Телефон.
Там есть еще кто-то?
Нет.
Хорошо, все, нормально. Покажи карманы.
Пожалуйста.
Стаси, чеки, мам.
Я проснулся и думаю, что за хуйня происходит, и все. Все слышал я, мужики. Вот он, я сильно очковал.
Я понял.
Мы очканули.
Вот это уже больше похоже на честный ответ. Мы спали. Спали. Заебался. Ты, блядь, какие мамы, сука. Я им говорю, выходите, они типа не слышат, блядь.